Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Since we are all coming from different time zones, so this is the first ever webinar that is being conducted by Reimagining Society, and the theme of the webinar is the well-being of Yemen. Well-being matters even in the times of conflict. So first, as it is our first webinar, I think we have to do justice by introducing ourselves. So, Reimagining Society is an international youth led organization which endeavors to create an inclusive, fair, sustainable community by holistically embedding the concept of well being. So, it heralds to move from a very self centric to a philanthropic citizen by designing solutions to the world's most pressing issues through a very comprehensive well being education program. It also aims to establish economic empowerment through youth and social connectivity. It believes that the synergy of innovation and dynamism, partnerships, and human development fosters a very unique change. So, the most important focus of our society as an asset is the most importantly, we look into wellness. Today, as we are in the midst of dealing with one of the gravest challenge in history, it has shown us that no living being can live without the other. We are truly interdependent and not independent. The countries, the people, the ecology, the societies, and even the microorganisms for that matter depend upon each other for existence. So, therefore, it is our responsibility, and even so, in the face of global structure that has gone wrong from the beginning itself, our right to act on the basis of global well being. There is a need to inculcate oneness with a humble sense of well being for all that lives. We have started this journey keeping in mind what our leaders have always given to us, that is the concept of well being and happiness. They had already forecasted the essence of a good life, and now it is on our hands to carry it forward to the rest of the world. In the face of this global pandemic, we ought to realize and we also ought to recognize what is most important to us. One should be sensible towards every living organism in the world, and in that retrospect, one can develop genuine well being. The development in technology and material uphill cannot suffice for well being. However, a collective journey and a behavioral change towards the way of life will. The COVID-19 pandemic has proven that. So everyone around the world, regardless of geography, regardless of age, regardless of culture, religion, or political environment, aspires to live well. Nowadays, well-being is the most essential factors human beings have realized, and the need for well-being to solve the most leading problems is seen. So, encouraging this value of creating a change to well-being, we are constantly working to reimagine a society where people value mental health rather than other factors that influence people to work. We have realized that the indicators to change the society and bring our new era of thinking has to change. So that's why is named Reimagining Society. So if I give you a brief background about the first webinar that is being held right now. Currently, the situation of Yemen has been called the worst humanitarian crisis in the last 100 years, with many people not having even access to the basic essentials that they need to survive. Essentials like food, like shelter, and basic necessities are collapsing. The population is much vulnerable already, and it is terrifying to imagine that COVID-19 is in the region as well. The region has already suffered from various epidemics such as cholera and swine flu, and an addition of COVID-19 to the whole scenario would exhaust the people of Yemen. So almost 3 years before the advent of COVID-19, Yemen was declared the most needy place even prior to this situation right now by the United Nations. 5 years of war has shattered the whole country's health system. It has left the country incapable of coping with the pandemic itself. So barely half of the healthcare infrastructure is already dysfunctional. There is a mass starvation. And also, in terms of solutions, the humanitarian aid is now being limited. The status of well-being of the people are highly compromised, and there is a lack of nutrition, further compromising the immune system of the people. We as youth, we as a platform of global well-being have a duty to send out a message. We need to use our voice to sensitize the global community and send a message. For that purpose, the smallest space should be utilized to spread the awareness to the rest of the world. While the cities are being divided and the bombs are raining down, the people are already exhausted and drained out of energy, and they cannot deal with something more. So we need to consider the dynamics of the effect in terms of mental well-being. Therefore, we felt that an issue of such a magnitude is not getting enough coverage by the media, and we as global citizens are mostly unaware or are having very little information on what is happening in Yemen. That is why the Reimagining Society team are organizing an online webinar where our prominent speaker from Yemen will give us some insight in the current situation. She will give us the real stories of what is happening in Yemen through a question and answer forum. It's high time that we hear her voice, and let's not let their voices go unheard. Now let me introduce you to the speaker who will further her introduction with a brief background and the work she is doing for positive global well-being. Her name is Ola Al-Sakaf, and we welcome her to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really thank you for inviting me to be with you today. I'm really glad to join you, and thank you for letting the voices of Yemeni people hear to the world. So my name is Ola Sakaf. I'm the program manager of Youth Without Borders Organization for Development. It is a Yemeni civil society organization working on enhancing the role of youth to enable them to play significant roles in their societies. We are working on youth, we are working in peace building, GBB, economic empowerment, and research conducting. We are trying to have an impact on our societies, to develop the societies and try to end the suffering of our people.
Thank you for the brief background, Ola. So while we are moderating the session, I would like to inform the audience that we are live at the same time in Facebook, in Instagram, and in LinkedIn as well. So if you have any questions, which I encourage you to do, you can leave the questions in the chat box, and we will take up the questions with Ola. So thank you, Ola. So let's start the webinar with the first question. So how the economic and fiscal policies in Yemen has affected the financial well-being of the people in Yemen? What is the status in terms of economic well-being, in terms of the peace and peace agreement and conflict situation in Yemen, with water scarcity going on, and there is excess of 150 cubic water, whereas in the Middle East threshold for water being 1,000 cubic water? How the Yemenis are coping up with the scarcity?
Okay, so the first part of the question is about the economic status of people during the war. So the lack of wisdom in controlling the country affected the economic status of people here in Yemen. So 5 years of, and they are almost now 6 years of ongoing war has affected not only the people, but the infrastructure of education, economy, and so on. So the financial status of people here in Yemen is very bad. Can you imagine that a lot of people are not getting their salaries since 2016? So can you imagine a family totally depends on their salaries and they do not have any salaries now? So how can they afford their essential needs? How they can pay rent? How they can pay for the education of their children? Or how can they bill for food at least? So people here are living very difficult circumstances. The war has affected everything. We have a lot of diseases now are spread here in Yemen, in addition to the outbreak of coronavirus. So healthcare system is not for free. So people have to pay for everything while they don't have any income. So a lot of people are dying of hunger. A lot of people are killing each other just to get food and shelter. So the financial status here in Yemen is getting bad and worse every day. Regarding the peace talks here in Yemen, maybe they have agreed on things on paper, but actually on our reality, we don't find any differences. The war is still going, and the situations is going worse and worse every day. So the peace talks has actually not affected or not developed the finance situation of the Yemeni people. And now, because of the coronavirus, a lot of people are actually depending on daily income. So their works has stopped, and they don't have any income at all. And regarding water scarcity in Yemen, so some statistics say that the capital of Yemen, Sana'a, is going to run out dry in 10 years. We don't have resources here for water in Yemen. We just depend on rain, and we have shortage of rain in the past few years. So farmers are starting to drill deeper to get water. About 10 million people here in Yemen do not have access to clean water. We just face difficulty to get water everywhere. And also we have to pay for getting the water. So a lot of people are using water that's not clean. And this is one of the reasons of the spread of many diseases.
Thank you for such a comprehensive answer, Ola. And I think that, that the answer itself points to another question. It makes me think that, if there are so many restrictions in terms of earning, then what are the alternative ways that people are figuring out in terms of having a stable financial well-being? And in that case, are the people even resorting to negative ways of earning?
Actually, in the 5-6 years, because of the emergency aid, a lot of people here in Yemen start depending on the emergency aid. That was great at the beginning. That was the reason of a lot of people to be survived. But on the other side, that made a lot of bad effects. A lot of people are not working now. They are not even thinking of working or producing. They just depend on the emergency aid. And I guess we should start some development project instead of the emergency aid. We should start developing the country, rebuilding it, and getting people to work again.
Okay. So is there any questions from the audience?
Not as of yet. You can continue, right?
Yeah. So I would like to go on with the second question. The audience can, leave the questions in the chat section, and we will take up with Ola. So what is the status in terms of the well-being of the women and children in retrospect to the basic necessities, in access of basic necessities?
I guess women and children are the most affected community group in this war. As statistics says that about millions of women are dying every day while giving birth. They cannot get health cure in this time. In addition to that, the amount of gender-based violence has increased in the during the war. So a lot of women are at risk of gender-based violence. A lot of them are being even killed, and most of the time by some of them relatives and members of their families. A lot of women are not allowed to go to school, so they do not finish their educations in most cases. In Yemen also we face the problem of early marriage for women. So a lot of women are forced to get married in an early age, and then a lot of them are in danger for a lot of health problems because of that. Regarding children, they are also not in a good situation. Um, Actually, we are losing our future generation during the war. Children cannot go to schools, they cannot have good educations because a lot of schools are closed and many families cannot afford for their education. So children don't have places to play in. Actually, because of the war, a lot of parks are closed, and the situation out is not safe for them. So they are forced to stay at homes. And what you know, or you shall know about Yemeni people, that usually the number of children is high. So the average is 5 children for each family. So they are just like in a prison. They cannot go out, they cannot study, they don't have place to go to play in. And in addition to all of these things, their families cannot provide them with the needs like food, water. So children and women are suffering, and I guess we should focus on this community group because it is the most affected community group and the most important community group. I guess women and children are our future. Women are the teachers, are the mothers, are the main part of the society, while children are our future.
Thank you, Ola, for such a holistic answer. And while we move on to the third question, I'd like to ask you that Yemen has been striving hard to cope up with the immediate conflict priorities and challenges, energy, for an example, telecommunications. Do you think that this has diverted the attention from factors affecting human development index like education, like health? I mean, how has this affected the social and mental well-being of the youth of Yemen?
Yeah, of course, it has a great impact. So let's talk about energy and electricity, for example. Do you know that we don't have electricity in Yemen since the beginning of the war? We are depending on solar panels. So I guess a child of 6 or 7 years don't know what electricity means. Regarding water, we have talked about the scarcity of water here in Yemen, and let's talk about communication too. The communication, we have a lot of difficulties because of the communication, and let me give you an example. In April, I was supposed to give a brief to the Security General about the situation here in Yemen. It was very hard to me to have access to good internet connection to give this brief. I had to go from one place to another trying to have a good connection or internet connection. So we are somehow in solidarity from the other part of the world. Access to communication is not easy, it's sparse, and just few number of the population here can get it. So all of this affect the mental health of people. Youth here are hopeless. You can find sadness in their eyes. Um, a lot of them choices to join the war, to go to the battles, because they don't have another choice. A lot of these youth drop their universities. They are not going to their universities anymore. A lot of them are abusing drugs, and a lot of them are committing a lot of crimes. So their mental health has been affected because they don't have choices, they don't have opportunities. uh, the government is excluded them from the peace processes, from peace building peace, from decision making. They don't have any other choices in other places. They don't have good energy. They don't have their essential needs. So all of this affect them negatively.
Okay. So, what are the current measures that are taken in order to improve mental well-being of the people? And has the conflict resulted in any sort of alienation of the people from other countries as well? Is there a division of sort?
Sorry, would you please repeat the last part of the question?
Is there a division of sort, and what are the current measures taken in order to improve the mental well-being of the people? And is the conflict the cause of the alienation?
Actually, the government is not doing anything regarding improving the mental health of people. However, a lot of organizations and local organizations to start to focus on the mental health of people. A lot of projects now are implemented to improve the mental health. A lot of activities are being implemented for youth. Youth now, I guess, have more opportunities than the beginning of the war. A lot of these youth stop joining the war battles and return back to their universities and try to find opportunities. And something else that a lot of people are just fed up of with the war and what's going around them. So they are trying now to find other choices for them to build this, to create these solutions. So I guess what shall be done is to focus more on youth and in the mental health, to implement more programs, to have some physical and psychological aid for the youth to help them.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, and it's from Ri Setosta, and she wants to know, what is the program of your government to continue the education, the classes? I think the question is in aspect of the COVID-19 that's happening, and in terms of, social distancing. Yeah. So she's asking, how are the classes being continued, or is there even classes going on?
Actually, there is no classes going on right now, and also the government did not have any plans to have online classes, so they just say that students cannot go to schools and they have to stay at home, and that's over. All students are get success, they can move to the next class, and they did not do anything regards the lessons they have missed. But it's difficult now for the government to let the students go again to schools, and they don't have, I guess, or they did not think seriously about other solutions. I guess having online classes is somehow difficult here in Yemen because, as I said previously, that a lot of people don't have access to the internet, and the internet connection is very weak here in Yemen. So they did not search for other alternatives, and what they do is just stop children from going to schools, unfortunately.
Okay, so I think, a brief comment we can make is that, when such a conflict happens and when such a pandemic is going on, and so many people are also on the streets. So when the street is your home, where do you place the we in terms of global well-being?
Yeah.
The pandemic is going to affect you anyhow because you're living on the street. The street is your home. I think that is something we in the rest of the world really need to think deep.
Yeah, and we have millions of IDPs here in Yemen who actually don't have houses to shelter in. So these people are one of the most affected groups because of the outbreak of COVID-19. And to let you understand more our situation, I guess all of you have been suffering because of the outbreak of the coronavirus. So you have to stay at home, your children cannot go to school, you are afraid of losing people you love, you don't feel safe. Actually, this is how do we feel since the beginning of the war. We're not safe, we cannot access to our essential needs. So this is the general situation in Yemen, which might has been felt by the other part of the world during the outbreak of the coronavirus.
Okay, so we will go on with our question and answer, and in the middle of the conversation, we will give you forward you the questions from the audience as well. So to continue with my Reimagining Society's questions, society has had a major impact in terms of one's happiness, and many of the mental well-being also depends upon how close you are to your society. So when such things happen, we usually turn up to the society towards lightening up our mood. So how do Yemenis people, I mean, lighten up their mood in terms of organizing social gatherings? Is there still social gatherings happening? And what is the status of cultural well-being in the
Yeah,
Yemeni community?
yeah, actually, it is something mysterious here in Yemen. Although all of these difficult circumstances, people are still living. A lot of people are happy and they are celebrating. Weddings, celebrations are still going. A lot of people are celebrating culture events, and a lot of new celebrations has appeared during the war. I guess people are trying to do something to let them happy. So they're just trying to do anything to forget about what's going on around them. So I once was walking in the street and I hear the voice of a bomb, and on the other side of the street there was someone singing loudly as nothing is going on around him. So I guess it's something like we have lost the feeling of fear. We do not care anymore. We have lost a lot and we're not afraid of losing more. I guess we have lost everything. So people are trying to be happy, they are trying to celebrate, they are trying to gather with others, they are trying to create things to make them happy despite what's going on around them. And I have also to mention that there is a lot of youth initiatives which have been implementing a lot of projects, a lot of festivals and events to make people happy, especially children. We're trying to do something for them to let them feel happy, to let them forget about what's going on around them. So a lot of efforts is done by youth initiatives, some organizations, just a lot of celebrations are implementing every day. Actually, these celebrations, the number of these celebrations has just decreased during of the outbreak of the coronavirus, but I guess they will return back again soon.
That's so, interesting to know that, I mean, in Bhutan, when we even hear a gunshot, we get scared. And now
Yeah,
the situation in Yemen is so, I mean, terrible that even when you're hearing the bombs raining out of the sky, people are used to that. And this has been a similar case in terms of Afghanistan as well. Although in terms of the weightage of conflict is little less compared to Yemen, but people are having the same kind of a feeling. I think the role of the government comes in very handy in terms of handling such crisis, because the contract between the state and the public is very weak. And so to comment on that, maybe we need to think about ways to make uh, the facilities in terms of health and education reach the poorer population of the public. We really need to think about how the poorer section of the population can access this kind of thing, so that even if they don't get basic um, health facilities, they are well aware of the facts of what is happening, of what is the crisis in terms of the epidemic. So going on to the next question, and the last question, and then we'll move on to the questions from the audience, from the live feeds that we are also conducting side by side. What is the current state of well-being in terms of career well-being, in terms of employment infrastructure in such a conflict situation, in such a situation where there is also a pandemic going on?
actually, a lot of people have lost their jobs since the beginning of the war, and as I told you before, their salaries in many areas in Yemen has stopped, so they are not getting salaries anymore. Um, a lot of jobs has just stopped. In many places, a lot of people cannot work anymore because they are now war lines. On the other side, other jobs has appeared. For example, a lot of organizations start working in Yemen, and this gave opportunity for many youth to join these organizations to work. A lot of youth start working in emergency aid programs, which are implemented in all around Yemen. So a lot of people start thinking of business and small projects. And I just want to talk about a good side about this. And before the war, people don't used to believe in the role of women. We didn't used to see a lot of women working, but due to the war, that's changed. A lot of women are not working now. Many of them has established their own projects, small projects, and you can see women everywhere working. I guess people start believing in the rule. They now understand that women can do what a man do. She can be the responsible of the family. She can produce a lot. She's enough measure to work and control and manage her business. So as I said that a lot of jobs has disappeared and other jobs has appeared because of the war. But in general, the career situation is not good because, as I said, a lot of people lost their jobs. And during COVID-19, a lot of people has to stop working, and many of them depends on the daily income. So this add new struggles to those people. They don't have any other resource for income, and uh, a lot of people trying to help them, but what they do is not actually enough. So the career situation is actually very bad.
Yeah, I think, the whole point of having this webinar by starting it off with a woman also proves a point in terms of, equal representation of women in the world. So I think we have started off very well, so to say, by having equal representation in terms of race, gender, class, creed, and religion. That is how, global well-being should be. We should have well-being for all, not just for a smaller section of the population, or not just for some section of the population which is much more developed than the other. Well-being should be in terms of an egalitarian concept. So we have some questions coming in from the live feeds, and someone has put up a question that it is evident that the conflict has affected the heritage of Yemen. It is in terms of cultural well-being. Do you feel it has affected the identity, dignity, and the future of Yemeni people in some ways?
Yeah, I guess. What I used to like about Yemen, although we are somehow there are a lot of different cultures and areas in Yemen, we used to live as one people. The war has created a lot of differences and occur a lot of problems and distinguish between people. So people now are fighting against each other. A lot of people think that they have priority upon other people. So these cause a lot of social problems and thus affect the social fabric of the community. So I guess after the war, we're going to face a lot of problems because of the effects of the war. A lot of people now do not accept people of other areas, and you know that because we are fighting between each other. So many people have been killed because of people of other cities or places. So I guess the revenge and the sense of revenge will be there for many years in the future. Uh, so yeah, it has been affected.
So this makes me ask you another question extended to the same question, is that, I mean, are there any standing monuments in terms of the heritage? Is there any standing monuments, or it's been bombed down?
Yeah, actually, a lot of heritage has been affected. And let's talk about my city ties. My city ties is under the siege since 2016, and we have here a castle. It's the very old castle. It's the oldest castle here in Taiz, and its name it is Al Cairo Castle, and it has been affected by the war. A lot of museums has been stolen in the war. Um, so yeah, many places have been destroyed at all. And let's also talk about Socotra Island, which has been now in conflict because of United Arab Emirates. So it is part of our heritage here in Yemen, and I guess it's going to be also stolen like other museums which has been stolen.
So are the monuments and are the, I mean, heritage, be it religious or cultural things are being also trafficked out of the Burma?
Sorry, would you please repeat that? I guess I have problem with the internet connection.
Yeah, I'm asking you that in terms of the destruction, what you have told me, is there also being like monuments inside the cultural heritage, like paintings and other relics being stolen by people or being trafficked to other countries?
Yeah, a lot of them has been stolen. Actually, they once find hundreds of these minimums in a house of a person. Uh, he was part of an armed group. So yeah, I guess a lot of them has been stolen. The museum in my city Taiz is almost now there is nothing in it at all. It has everything inside it has been stolen, and the building itself has been destroyed.
I think we have an overwhelming support from the audience because we are getting in a lot of questions for you, Ola. So Kriti has asked from her end that what is that people from different countries are doing to help improve the situation in Yemen?
Actually, a lot of things must be done from everybody. I guess the first thing must be done by the Yemeni people themselves. They should stop fighting against each other and killing each other, because they're just killing each other for no reason at all. And the international community also has to work hardly to end this war and call for a ceasefire, a complete ceasefire in the country. Also, organizations who are working here in Yemen, I guess they have to implement projects based on needs assessment. They should understand the society and what does it need to build their programs and projects. I guess we don't need emergency aid anymore. We just need to start developing, to start implementing, to start building the country. So having emergency aid projects is something that's not working anymore. And from other people in the world, I guess they have to focus on the Yemeni problem. They have to talk about it more. They have to highlight the suffering of Yemeni people, and also to advocate the issues that we are suffering from.
Yeah, we have a question from the Reimagining Society team, who is from the Bahamas. His name is Faron, and he is asking that Yemen has been facing a civil unrest from the past 4 years, and it is currently in the state of turmoil. The situation of children, particularly in Yemen, is deplorable condition, and they are being subjected to exploitation. Many a time cases aren't even reported. So no child should be subjected to such situations. So what can we do to help the children of Yemen, particularly the vulnerable population? Yeah, bye.
Sorry, would you please repeat the last part of the question?
So he's talking about the vulnerable situation of children. I mean, they are subjected to exploitation. So what can we do to help the children of Yemen?
Yeah, I guess we should focus on children, and this is something is also not done by a lot of organizations, and they are not targeted by any projects. Children here in Yemen are our future. They are the community group that we should focus on and work on, because they are our future. Children, I guess we first have to help children to in their psychological phase, because being a child living during the war is not something easy. Being a child who has seen blood in the streets, who has lost part of his body, or losing one member of his family has affected their psychological condition. So I guess first we have to start working in this part. Also, we have to work on children to provide them with their essential needs, so that children should not think about how they can get food. They should play, they should sing. They should not think about how can they drink water or what can they eat. So I guess we have to provide them with their needs, or maybe provide their families with economic development projects that help them to provide these children with their needs. And then how to provide children with the things they need as children, not as human in general. Children need places to play in. They need to live the life that other children in the world live.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of public support coming in for the situation in Yemen, because now we're having questions from Indonesia. So Ruth Setia 1 from Indonesia is asking, are there any mental first aid for people in crisis to increase resilience and survival rates? And are there practical ways that international individuals can help the people of Yemen? I have seen people doubting donation posts because they don't know if their money will fully go to the people of Yemen. Very interesting question.
Yeah, I guess yeah, he's right. The people of Yemen. I guess what you should do is that you should donate for uh, organizations or parties that you are sure of their work. Uh, because yeah, a lot of donations don't go to people who are really in need. So I guess also in Yemen, the government and people themselves should evaluate and monitor these donations to make sure that they goes to the right people.
We have another question from Ujwal Khatri, and he's asking, what are the measures taken by the health department in Yemen to cope up with the pandemic COVID-19 as well as the starvation of children? He's
Actually, the
particularly
government,
referring to the health department, I think.
yeah, the government itself is not doing a lot, but yeah, they have tried to do something regarding the outbreak of COVID-19. So a lot of hospitals has been reopened again. They are providing people with sanitizers. A lot of public places has been cleaned, but what they did is not enough uh, in comparing to the needs of people on the society. Some organizations now start to work on projects to decrease the outbreak of the COVID-19, but and people are now more aware about how they can protect themselves. A lot of them do not go out of their houses. Children are not going to school anymore. But the health system itself in Yemen has been affected by the war. It is almost has been destroyed by the war. So I guess here in Taiz, it is a city of more than 10 million people, and about, I guess, 3 million people, and we just have about 3 or 4 hospitals, public hospitals. So the health system here is not able to cover up with all the needs.
Okay. We have another question from Indonesia, from Dionita Putri Jojo. And she's asking you, is there any agency in Yemen that takes care of the children, especially those who saw and became the victims of war, to cure their trauma? And from a holistic perspective, how do Yemeni parents give their children understanding of this situation? Because the children can't go to school, they can't play outside, and etc., etc. It's a very good question.
Yeah, actually, there are some organizations like I guess Save the Children and other organizations, local and international organizations working on children. But due to the war and the essential needs of the society, I guess for many organizations, children is not a priority while they should be. So the funds that is giving for such projects are not a lot. People are organizations and the international community is focusing more on the emergency aid. So yeah, some projects are implemented, but they are not a lot or they are not enough. And for parents, I guess children used to hear these sounds and voices of the war. They get used, and I guess parents here are frank with their children. We cannot tell them, we cannot hide the truth because it is clear. So for me and my family, we try to explain what's going on for the children and tell them that this not going to last forever, and they just need to wait for time and everything is going to be okay. We're trying to tell them about the good things they might find after the end of the war. We're telling them about the parks and what are the games that we are going to play when the war is finished. Some families also depends on TV and the internet to find some programs, songs, and games for their children to play.
I think, it's very, very interesting because children have their own way of growing up and they need that space to grow up. And if such things happen, what happens is that, they mature before their age. When they are supposed to play, they become so much mature that they start understanding what is happening in their surroundings. And before their age counts, they becomes
Yeah,
hardened inside. And yeah,
and something we
in
did not
terms of
talk about regarding children. A lot of children are working on streets, and their number increased during the war. Everywhere you go, you find children bathing, sell things on the streets, or working in other shops or with other people. So the number of working children has increased during the war.
we have another question, and this one is from Anna from the UK. And she's asking you, what do you think are the key steps that must be taken to help lift Yemen out of this crisis? What should be prioritized first? Key steps.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's a good question, but it's hard to answer it because it is the problem for the whole population. It is the suffering of 30 million people. So how to get children from this is somehow difficult. But I guess we can have some programs to targeting parents to raise their awareness of how they can deal with their children during the war, what's the good way to deal with the children, or how they can have some activities which can be done at home for their children so that um, they just get them away from the environment around them.
Okay. Thank you so much. Uh, Prasad in the chat section are she's asking you that, are there any social organization that is working in terms of children, I think, in terms of
I guess,
helping the children?
yeah, I guess we have talked about this question. Actually, there is, but the number is not enough. So organizations, local and international organizations, are not giving priority for children in this stage. They just focus on emergency aid and the peace process talks, peace building projects. So they don't give priority for children. That's why we don't have a lot of projects targeting children.
Yeah, I think that, when we look into the whole scenario of what is happening in the Yemeni context, we need to consider the fact that the whole world is interdependent upon each other. there's a saying that, a flutter of, wings from a small butterfly can have a tornado somewhere else. So a
Yeah.
butterfly can create a tornado just by a flutter of its wings, which is to say that, what happens in New York, what happens in San Jose, what happens in Berlin, what happens in Beijing, what's happening in Manila, what's happening in Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, has interdependence upon what happens in some other place.
Yeah.
So I think that we have come to the end of the webinar, and it was quite an interesting discussion, and to know something very holistically in terms of the real situation that is prevailing in Yemen. So I think migrants from all across the globe have also been affected immensely. Also, the measures taken to, cope up in terms of COVID-19 also seem to lack in Yemen. So people not only living in Yemen, but also across the world have been immensely affected in terms of the health situations. So
Yeah.
what initiations can be taken by people from all over the globe to act as a helping hand? I mean, in terms of your message, we as youth, how can we be a helping hand?
I guess such like your program and webinar today is a helping hand that's giving for the Yemeni people. I guess our issue, our struggle should be highlighted by youth in the world. So our voices might be heard by the international community because of your help. Uh, a lot of people don't know anything about Yemen and the war here. So I guess the situation should be highlighted by youth around. Also, we need to advocate some issues of the Yemeni society and Yemeni youth in specific. Uh, we are youth here in Yemen are hopeless now. They don't have opportunities. They don't have the access to these opportunities. So that might be done by other youth around the world to help them to get access to her these voices to be heard by the world.
Thank you for encouraging us, from, especially coming from so affected as a victim, as a witness of so many things that's going, negatively in well-being. So thank you for all the audience for joining this webinar as well. And before we end the session, we would like to have a group screenshot with all of you guys. So I request all of the people who are involved in the webinar to please switch on your cameras so that we can all support for the well-being of Yemen, because well-being matters in times of conflict as well. Can I ask the audience to please switch on your camera so that we can have a group screenshot? Yeah, the technical team can go ahead and take the screenshot, please.
We're waiting for everyone to turn the cameras on.
Yeah, I once again reiterate and request all the audiences involved in the webinar to please switch on your cameras so that we can see your beautiful faces and take a screenshot.
Okay, I'm taking the screenshots now. 1, 2, 3, smile everyone. And one more. Okay, done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining for the session. We really hope to see you again in further sessions. We will be having a lot of sessions throughout the month. We also have competitions going. Please follow our page and subscribe to our social media handles. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, and have a very, very, very wonderful day. Have a wonderful night. Good night. Sawadee Ka. May good well-being and fortune be upon you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola, for joining as well.
Thank you, Ola.
The team will stay, and Ola, please stay as well.